As we know, HaKadosh Baruch Hu begins the process of the Jewish people's redemption by appearing to Moshe in the burning bush. And he tells Moshe that he's decided it's time to redeem the Jewish people, and Moshe is going to be the shaliach to represent God in demanding the redemption. Moshe responds to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he says, "Who am I to go to Paro? He's going to laugh at me." HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "I'll be with you. Trust me, it'll be okay." Then Moshe in Pasuk Yud Gimel raises a new problem. Vayomer Moshe el Elokim, Hinei anochi va'el b'nei Yisrael. Forget Paro's willingness to let them go. I'm going to come to the Jews and tell them that God has sent me. And they're going to ask me for proof. They're going to ask me for an explanation. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu now begins introducing Moshe's mission from the perspective of the Jewish people. And he says in Pasuk Tetvav, Ko tomar el b'nei Yisrael, Hashem Elokei Avotechem, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, Shlachani Alechem. The God of your ancestors has sent me. Lech v'yasavta et ziknei Yisrael, gather together the Jewish elders. V'amarta Alehem, Hashem Elokei Avotechem nira elai. God has appeared to me. Elokei Avram, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov le'mor, pakod pakadati etchem, v'etasu lechem b'Mitzrayim. The words Moshe is supposed to tell the heads, the elders of the Jewish people is pakod pakadati. You read these psukim, they seem pretty nondescript, and you wonder why these words are supposed to be so convincing. How are they really an answer? But what's interesting is that we see that these words were understood by Moshe to be critical. Because a few psukim later, when he came to the Bnei Yisrael and presented them with his mission, he quoted these words from HaKadosh Baruch Hu verbatim. And what he said is, I have a report here, in the end of Perek Daled, Pasuk Lamed, Vayedaber Aaron et kol hadvarim asher diber Hashem el Moshe. Aaron repeated over in the name of Moshe. Vayamein ha'am, the people believed. Vayishma'u ki fakad Hashem et b'nei Yisrael. And they heard that God had indeed pakad, remembered in quotes, the Jewish people. So we see that this word, these two words, pakod pakadati, were significant. Chazal points out that these words were a significant part of the Masorah of the Jewish people. We find already in the end of Sefer Bereshit that Yosef, when he talks about the future redemption, he says, "Vayomer Yosef elechav anochi meit, ve'elokim pakod yifkod etchem." And then when he makes the brothers promise to take his bones out, "Vayeshba Yosef et bnei Yisrael lemor, pakod yifkod elokim etchem ba'alitem et atzmotai mizeh." In fact, Moshe himself links these words back to Yosef in the beginning of Parshat Beshalach. When he retrieves Yosef's bones, it says, "Vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef imo." He himself took the bones. Ki hashbea hashbiat b'nei Yisrael le'emor pakod yifkod elokim etchem va'alitem et atzmotai mizeh etchem. Moshe connects the Geula happening now to Yosef and his words. Rashi, on the words pakod pakadati, tells us that there was a Masorah already from the Avos, from Yaakov and Yosef, who both used these words. The Medrash, Pirkei Rabbi Elazar, goes even further and says these words began already with Avram and with Yitzchak. And when Moshe came and presented his mission, the Jews went to the elder stateswoman of the Jewish people, Serach Bas Asher, the daughter of Asher, who had lived a long life. And they said, this person Moshe came and said he's redeeming the Jewish people. She said, we don't have a reason to believe him. And then they said, he said pakod pakadati. She said, this is it. So obviously the question is, what is the great significance of these words? And also, what's the significance of there being two words? Hashem says to Moshe, pakod pakadati. But interestingly, when the Jewish people hear it and believe, it says, they heard ki pakad Hashem, singular. So the Or HaChaim, and before him Rabbeinu Bachaya, they speak about the two words relating to two levels of this pikidah. The Or HaChaim talks about referring to the Geula of Mitzrayim and the eventual Geula as well. Rabbeinu Bachaya talks about one relating to us and one relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which would explain why when the Jews hear it, they hear Ki Fakad Hashem et Bnei Yisrael, because it's just referring to them. But the question still remains, what is the deeper meaning of the word Pakad? We generally use the word zachar to refer to someone remembering someone else. But in unique circumstances, we use the word pakad. V'Hashem pakadet Sarah. And here, pakod pakadati, the entire Jewish people. I'd like to suggest that the deeper meaning of the word pakad, which can mean on the one hand to remember, but can also mean other things, its deeper meaning lies in these other meanings. The other meaning is to have a sense of responsibility, to have a tafkid. A pakad is someone who is responsible for others. The mifkad of the Jewish people in Chumash HaPikudim in Sefer Bamidbar is where they're counted and put in a position in the machane where each one plays a role. Geula begins when we see ourselves as having a role and being responsible to fulfill it. God has a role with us, and we have a role with Him. Pakod Pakadati is when God takes up His place with His role to us, and we accept responsibility for our role relative to Him. As Rabbeinu B'chai says, Pakod Pakadati relates to the Jewish people and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God remembers us. God blesses us. God grants us children. God redeems us from Egypt, our own Egypt, when we remember the role and responsibility to fulfill that role that we have. And that is why these are the words of the Geula. God is pakod etanu when we are ready to pokad ourselves relative to Him. The Geula is pakod pakadati, a Jewish people ready to stand up and ready to take their proper place, and each one ready to play their role they're supposed to play as individuals and as part of the tzibur. May we be zochet to realize our pakod, so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can have His pakod, and as the Orach Chaim says, as the pakod pakadati applied to Egypt, it should apply by Yamim Haim Bazman Hazeh. Shabbat Shalom.